Mr. Hamel, what do you think are some important policy implications resulting from PASK?
Well, so let's just quickly summarize what some of the main findings from the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge project are. Uh, Equivalent, comparable rates of violence between men and women, comparable rates of emotional abuse and control, um, similar risk factors for men and women perpetrators, similar motives. Uh, the caveat is women are far more impacted. These findings suggest that partner abuse is primarily a mutual phenomena. I may have neglected to say that one of the partner abuse state of knowledge manuscripts looked at the extent to which domestic violence is bidirectional as opposed to unidirectional. In other words, how much domestic violence is perpetrated by a single perpetrator versus both partners. It turns out that about 60% of domestic violence, partner abuse, is mutual. It's bi-directional. Both partners are violent. And given the fact that most domestic violence involves lower level violence, pushing, grabbing, that does not lead to injury, there's no reason whatsoever why couples counseling and family therapy, for example, should not be at least a consideration for treatment providers who want to work with families where there's domestic violence. Unfortunately, in the United States, only a few states allow couples counseling or family therapy for individuals who have been arrested for domestic violence. In California, where I live, it is forbidden to conduct any kind of couples counseling, even if the couple both want it, even if the victim insists on it, and even if a licensed mental health professional and an expert in the field has assessed both partners to determine that this is safe and possibly effective. Secondly, although women make up about 50% of domestic violence perpetrators, and arguably somewhere around 40% of perpetrators of more severe violence, only about 10% of individuals who have been court ordered into a batterer intervention program, that is to say, a program appropriate for someone that's been convicted of a domestic violence crime. About 10% of these individuals around the country are women and 90% are men. A couple of the partner abuse state of knowledge manuscripts looked at gender and ethnicity in terms of how people are arrested and the law enforcement response to domestic violence, and determined that there is gender bias primarily in terms of men being arrested in situations where it's clear that it's either a dually perpetrated situation of domestic violence or the perpetrator was not really clearly identified. So in other words, when the police arrive at a scene of domestic violence crime, there are certain laws that encourage them to make an arrest. These are called mandatory arrest policies. And as a result of these policies, and as a result of the inherent assumption that perpetrators are male, police tend to arrest men, even though in many cases the man may not be the primary perpetrator. In other words, both partners may be violent, or in some cases the female partner may be the one who's actually the most violent. So one of the implications of PASK is that there probably should be more women arrested, more dual arrests, and perhaps not so much more arrests, but perhaps a more sophisticated approach to assessing these problems so that proper treatment can be used rather than the kind of one-size-fits-all kind of reflexive response that we have now.
Mr. Hamel, thank you again for talking with me. For our viewers, the last installment of PASK will be printed in issue number 2, coming out in mid-May this year, 2013. To subscribe or for more information, visit the journal's webpage at www.springerpub.com. Thank you.
You're welcome.